Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. I'm Edgar. I'm joined as always with the better half, Ricky Rains, our co-host for today for our Draft Crush cross collab with Panthers on Tap. So, Ricky, how are you?
I'm good, man. I don't know why you say the better half, though. I think you see the reaction on the internet. Every time we say we're going to do a episode together, it's, yeah, finally, more Edgar, more Edgar. Shout out to AJ. He wanted more Edgar. So I'm happy to be here, dude. I love doing these episodes. This year we've kind of done them a little different, Edgar, where they're almost like fill-ins, right? Where we have a little bit of time and something has come up or we get to kind of just play around and have some fun with some draft stuff. But it's enjoyable because you and I we really get into some of like the trends, the historical stuff that the Panthers have done, maybe some of the tea leaves, which I know that you have some cool news that we'll talk about during the draft with some tea leaves on a certain prospect today. And so yeah, man, it's just a lot of fun. I am excited to do this. We're gonna do a full 6 round. You say 6 because it's only 6 rounds and we got picks, right? We don't have picks in the 7th.
Yeah.
But a full Panthers mock draft today.
I didn't get to tell you, Ricky, the ones that are clamoring for Edgar are just my burner accounts. So,
well, you got good burner accounts, man. You got thousands of followers on them. So
I don't want to burst your bubble here, but that's just
no, that's good, man. I think any account that likes our stuff is good by me. Whether it's just us with different names, wearing a mustache and glasses, I'm cool with it, man.
So let's start with like some parameters, some background here. So we want to do a mock draft, but I know the Panthers on Tap guys plus Ricky, or Ricky is one of the Panthers on Tap guys, but Ricky and the crew have been doing some mock drafts. But we've had some major news. We've had free agency. We just got word of a couple things today. One, a very cheap contract for Rashid Walker, the new left tackle for the Panthers, and so that could play into how we play the board here today. Jalen Kilgore was just reported to have a visit with the Panthers. I forgot to mention this, Ricky, but I don't know if you saw that Malik Muhammad is also scheduled to meet with the Panthers. I don't know if that's a visit, don't know if it's something else, but he already had a virtual. So on the board, we already have in terms of reports. Obviously, everything here I want to couch is reported. This is not coming from the team or the player. So these are all just reports from whether it's agents or players leaking to other reporters. But at least it looks like they're looking at corners, nickel corners, safeties. This just the first two off the board that we're looking for. So
that's interesting.
We're gonna be looking at that. I got one, not one, but we have someone who with a recommendation we do our mock, Ricky. So first parameter, do you want to do trades today?
Man, this is always the question, right? Because it's like when you do it without trades, I feel like it's a lot easier to justify and say, hey, look, we're just going through. We're going to try to match prospects with value of where they are. When you start doing trades, you got to kind of think, is this in line with what Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis would typically do? Does it match their MO with like how they value picks and the number of selections in a draft? But you know what, Edgar? I also think that trades make things fun. I enjoy trades. I think that they give it a little spice, right? It's like that. You remember old Emerald Lagasse on the Food Network before Bobby Flay? Well, bam, like spice it up. I don't know, man. I think I'm for trades, but I also think that if we want to keep it really simple, maybe we just do like one trade. So if we, kind of like a coach's challenge situation where we only get one of them. So you got to choose where do you use it, right? Do you use it in the first round because you can recoup more value? Or do you wait and try to get more in the second or third later on? How do you feel about that idea of one trade in the draft?
I was going to say the exact same thing. And then the other parameter I was going to ask you is like, what if we only limit it to day one and day two? Because I don't want to sit around.
I don't really want to be trading. I don't want to figure out how to package 158 and 159 up. You know what I mean?
For the record, the Panthers might do that, but we're not.
They may.
This is a mock draft. We're not going super hardcore. So
come on now, it's a Wednesday at 12:30 on the East Coast, 9:30. It's breakfast time out there in Cali.
Yeah. I mean, and then another question for you. Maybe we could bring it up to the chat to see what they're interested in. But we've always talked about when we do our mock drafts, or my pet peeve when it comes to mock drafts is like I want to either have it be predictive, like what we think the Panthers are going to do, or what I want to, or what we would want to do.
Yeah.
Just full disclosure, I'm not Ricky Rains. I'm not grinding film. I'm not spending my late nights watching all 22. But I've seen some players, but not enough to evaluate. Oh, this person's better. This person. So like my role or the POV that I bring is wanting to see like what I think the Panthers would do. But then again, there's also people who want to see like what should we do. So maybe what do you think, Ricky or chat? What do you think? Should we do a predictive draft? Should we do like what we would do kind of draft?
Yeah, chat, leave that up to you guys. Give some input here. We'll get through this chat real quick, actually, while we're waiting for some answers to that, and
Yeah.
while I think on it too, because I'm not really sure either. Edgar,
Yeah.
Devin Lloyd 0, I believe this is Carter. I think maybe played the right intro this time. Yeah, sure did, man. Thank God. These double shows, Edgar, have been messing me up, man. We went on Panthers on Tap last week, and I played the Draft Crush intro because it was just up there from the last show that we did. So Dalton's in here with us. What up, Dalton? Appreciate you being here. Marcus Cash, what's up, Panthers Nation? Yeah, look, I hope that there's a good amount of Panthers fans that are watching this today because I've seen a lot of conversation about these prospects, Edgar, specifically in the first round and positions that you don't go to, positions that we should ignore, that Dan would be crazy, he should be fired for taking. And so I really do look forward to getting into some of that stuff today. Edgar, you want to go ahead and give the background or the second answer to that?
Pounding.
There you go. All right, I like it. Katie's in the house. Katie, what's up? How you doing? Zacharias, there's the trades. Stratted, if Freeling and Thieneman is there at 19, who do we take? Man, I hope that they're both on the board so we can have that conversation. I really hope we do. Just because they have visits to Carolina, maybe Carolina doesn't want them that much, especially in round one. Well, yeah, we'll see. Zulu King, what up, fellas? What up, man? How you doing? Panthers talk is always good. Completely agree. All right, so Dalton says, what would Dan the man do? He wants it. Taylor wants a draft like Dan Morgan as well. I like that. A lot of mocks going around are the what would we like to do scenarios. Would love a realistic draft scenario. Appreciate the work, guys. All right, so look, you're seeing there's a trend here, Edgar. Draft like they would. Draft like Dan Morgan and company. And then we've got Trent's burner. Trent, appreciate you. I need to hear about Ricky's draft crushes. We're going to talk a little bit about draft crushes too. We're going to do that. But I think we've got everything we need here, Edgar. I think we do this from the Panthers' perspective, right?
What if we did a compromise here, Ricky?
Okay.
So we'll draft. We'll do the draft as we predict that they would do, but on a side, like I could do a side notes app here. Like I'd love to see what Ricky would do. So maybe we predict, but Ricky would go this. But our actual flow today will be what we think the Panthers would do.
Yeah, so we'll use a simulator, and the selections that we make on the simulator, you and I will come to a consensus as Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis, right? And that will be the pick. But then we will also, before we make that selection, we'll look at the board, and I will give just a personal pick for me that I would do that maybe they would not be interested, or maybe we align. Maybe my pick is the same as theirs. But yeah, that's terrific. And look, Brady Lang, is that it? Am I doing this the right way? That was like a tongue twister in my eyes to see that name for some reason. I was like, Brady Langel, Brady Angel. All right. Brady Lang, 8060, likes that idea. I like that idea too. So let's get into that. Last part of business before we start up this mock draft. The simulator of choice for today. I think PFF has typically been what we have always used, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think. So for consistency, we can go right back to that well. I know Pro Football Network has been doing a lot of different stuff with theirs. They just released, I think, a new version today, actually, that had a bigger profile area with like spider charts and stuff like that for each prospect when you pull them up. But I know PFF is a little bit more like on the uniform of that's what you see people going off of. So for that sake, do you want to do PFF or do you want to switch it? How you feel?
Oh, good one. Let's go PFF.
Let's go PFF. Do you want to run the simulator?
I take it back. If we're gonna incorporate trades, can we go to PF? Can we do the other one? And so at least we'll have some. I don't know how well the PFF off. I haven't really explored that as much.
The trade value thing.
Yeah, if we want to go the trades, maybe we do the other one.
Sure. Do you want me to pull it up?
Sure.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. All right, let me get this situation.
Yeah, so while he's firing it up, a couple of things that Ricky and I had talked about when we're doing this mock draft. So thank you, chat, for the recommendations. We're gonna do this as we predict that the Panthers will do. This is just my personal formula. So I know Ricky and I have had internal conversations about, what are the Panthers gonna do. So there's two tea leaves for lack of a better word, that we are using to help predict what the Panthers will do. One has been physical threshold. So for those who read the Carolina draft guide last year, we put down like thresholds, like what size profiles do the Panthers typically like. There's some great players that we like this year. I know Ricky likes R. Mason Thomas. I know D'Angelo Pons is very exciting, but they are way, way, way beyond physical thresholds of what they've signed or drafted in the past. And so we tend to avoid those. Doesn't mean that we don't like those players, but until proven otherwise, we're gonna, at least if it's okay with Ricky, we're gonna try to stay within what they do. And secondarily, even though we don't have that much information, they have typically drafted guys that they have visited with. So in these last couple of years, again, it doesn't mean that they're always gonna follow their thresholds. It doesn't mean they're always only gonna draft people from their visits, but the vast majority of people that they draft are people who fit their thresholds and or they have brought in for a visit. So those are the type of um, those are the things that we're going to be using to help determine what we think the Panthers will do. Because I'm not in Dan Morgan's mind. I don't have their cheat sheet. I don't have a inside video or insider scoop. So that's what we'll be doing.
Yeah. The other thing that we can do here with PFSN, Pro Football Network Simulator, Edgar, is that you see it says selected players list. We can take the PFF rankings here and run it through this simulator and take advantage of all the things that Pro Football Network has while still keeping uniform with the rankings that you see in most draft picks or most mock drafts.
Okay.
You want to do
Let's
that?
do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's do that. And that's no slight, though, to Ian Cunningham, who does the draft rankings and stuff for Pro Football Network. He's one of the best. I do appreciate his, and I like how his veers off. But for the sake of just kind of keeping it simple, we'll do that. All right, so we're ready to kick this thing off. You got 7 rounds. Panthers only have selections through the first 6. We're going to go fast draft speed to kind of keep this thing expedited. All right. You ready for this?
Yeah. Do you want me to give you a draft clock, Ricky?
Oh, we could
or
do
us,
that.
Give us a draft clock.
Didn't we have one at one point, Edgar? Didn't we use one on like a mock draft? I could have sworn we had a clock. I don't know where the heck it went, but I thought that we had some sort of.
We might have used it on a Panthers on Tap one before.
I think you're right.
To keep us from straying too far from the time.
Well, we can put that clock on, but you know what's going to happen. The minute that clock hits 0, we're going to say, yeah, hold on, give me a couple more minutes. We got to finish talking about this because we're not pressed up against it, right? We can do whatever we need to. All right, so let's look at this real quickly. We have one trade offer, and it's the Chargers offering pick 22 and their 2027 second round pick for the Carolina Panthers, okay? You see right here the value offered Carolina, their pick at pick 19 is 278 points value. The offer from the Chargers is 318 points. But what I want to do, Edgar, if it's okay with you, let's look and see the draft results first, right? Which is over here on this left-hand side. Is this big enough? Can everyone see this decently? Let's see if that helps a little bit. Okay. So on this left-hand side, you see I'm scrolling up. Mendoza went number 1. That's a shocker. That's just crazy. Caleb Downs going 3 might be a pretty significant development because I don't think that people are anticipating him going that high right now. There's a lot of talk about will he fall because of the whole degenerative tag that he was given in some of the medicals. Can you speak a little bit about that, Edgar? Because you made a good post or said something about that, where the degenerative thing is just a cause for a recheck. It's not necessarily saying that every team feels that way, correct?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know the full details. I've never worked at the combine, but it sounds like if teams want to recheck or flag someone to be medically evaluated, so it doesn't mean that this person has a degenerative ACL or this person is I think it's just again, this is my understanding. I'll correct myself if I'm incorrect, but it sounds like they want to research more into his medicals versus this person. I guess when people say someone's got flagged and someone has degenerative ACL, they assume that you were flagged for a degenerative ACL versus they would like to have more additional rechecks for his particular condition.
I put you on the spot there and made you like, hey, give me an official answer here when you don't have an official capacity to do it. That's my fault. All right, no, Jeremiah Love 6. CJ Allen went 10 here. That's crazy, isn't it? CJ Allen went before Sonny Styles. Does that void this entire draft, Edgar? Like, does that just completely cancel this thing out? Dylan Thiedemann here goes 11. I can't see any way, shape, or form where the Miami Dolphins do not go wide receiver there at 11, especially if Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson, who you see right here, are still on the board. Very interesting that that's the way that turned out. Avion Terrell, favorite from some Panthers fans, went here at 18. Cassius Howell at 17 might be a bit early as well. But you reap what you sow. And looking over here on this right side of the board, you got the players available. And one name sticks out to me right away, Edgar, and that's Monroe Freeling right
me
here.
Me too. We're on the same page.
Sticks out a lot to me, man. That is and it looks like this is not the updated thing here for the player profile. So we'll just look at this. 6'7", 315 pounds, Monroe Freeling. You see that relative athletic score there of 9.99. I mean, this guy, he is built prototypically the way that you would want your blind side protector, or even on the right side, right? Just with the length, the density of the body build. All of that stuff is right. As far as the length, Monroe Freeling at the combine measured in with 34 3/4 inch arm, 10 3/4 inch hands, and an 84.5 inch wingspan. So I mean, this dude is gigantic. He's got the frame for it. I feel, Edgar, a little bit that from a watching the play, he's a little bit less developed than the body is. His physical build is exactly of a put him in there and he's going to be your stalwart for a decade to 15 years on the blind side. He does everything you want. He's very physical. He's got great movement skills. He can get out in space. He's a great lead blocker out in space. His feet get a little bit dicey at times. His hand placement still needs some refinement, but he's got pop behind his hands. He's got dancing bear is the term used for these really big guys with fluid athleticism on the lower half, right? He has some elements to that. It's just not buttoned up. It's just not dressed up, right? Like he's still kind of wearing the blue collar to work where he's got white collar aspirations because of his build and his, composition. What is it about Monroe Freeling that stands out to you here, though?
For me, so just news that came out this morning, right? So everybody, first of all, thought that Dan Morgan, Brand Tillis got a steal in getting Rasheed Walker for a steal for 1 year, $10 million. Contract details come out today, and it's actually a base value of $4 million with incentives pushing it to potentially $10 million. And so for me, I know a lot of people on Twitter were like, dude, this is a heist. Like, I can't believe they got him for so cheap. But then the other part of me realizes you can't just get really good players for cheap unless, they're coming home or like they're at the end of their career and they want to, the Adam Thielen thing or the Mike Evans thing. Like, that's the only reason why you're getting a deal. So if the Panthers are getting a left tackle at $4 million base, there's some whispers about health, whispers about off-field stuff, whispers about performance, right? And so he could, I think the contract news that came out almost pushed me towards, I think the Panthers might want to get a left tackle in the draft in the first round.
So we see the chat here. The chat likes the trade back idea here. Those are the first two comments popped up right when they saw the available player pool. It was trade back. That's a trade back all day. Edgar, I got to tell you, man, I feel like Dan and Brant would be sitting here, and if Monroe Freeling fell, I almost feel like that's where they would sit there and say, that's the prize of the draft class as far as offensive tackle. Is that the BPA strategy that they talk about, right? Of if this guy falls into your lap, you take him even if he's not necessarily the guy that plays right out of the gates. But is that a waste of your first round pick if you don't get production from him this year when you need it?
There's two reasons why I'm actually thinking about this trade back. So it's 22 to the Chargers, right, Ricky?
Yeah.
So part of me likes Monroe Freeling. Just send it in. We're good, right? But that second round pick for next, I mean, can you pull up that offer again?
Yes. Let's see. Where was the trade offer? Trade offer right here. Okay, there you go.
So the reason why I'm thinking about it, and then Ricky, I'd love your take. I know I didn't answer your question about Monroe Freeling, but love him in terms of like size, wingspan, like the physical toolkit. There's still areas to improve. He's not a perfect prospect. If he would, he'd be an automatic top 10 pick. But like there are some things around him, right? So the three offensive tackles I'm thinking about in this area, right? Monroe Freeling, if he falls, absolutely. Caden Proctor, gigantic, huge mammoth of a man that plays left tackle for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And Caleb Lomu, the left tackle from Utah, right? Is Freeling significantly better than the other two? Because if we're dropping to 22, odds are one of the other three will be there. Secondarily, and then I haven't studied this, I'm barely studying this draft class, but I heard next year's draft class is deeper and much more. And then we say this every year, so who knows? It could be the same. But getting a pick next year sounds intriguing to me if that class is as fruitful as people say it is.
Sure. First part of the question, right? Is he that much better than the other two? We're talking about Caden Proctor, and who was the other left tackle that we were
Caleb
talking
Lomu.
about? Caleb Lomu. I like Caleb Lomu a lot. I think Caleb Lomu has all the makings of being a blindside protector for a long time in the NFL. The play strength is really the point of contention for Caleb Lomu right now, as far as the consensus and evaluations. I think he's got the frame to obviously add on. I believe he's added like 40 or 50 pounds to his frame since getting to Utah. So I think that he's clearly got more room. He weighed in at like 313, I think, at the combine, which he was listed at like 307. He looked like he wasn't thin in the bottom. You know, like you get to actually see what these guys look like without shoulder pads and stuff. Like you get to see what the body looks like, which, you know, that's helpful. And when you're trying to decide, can this guy add functional strength and weight that isn't bad weight? That's going to be the conversation about Caden Proctor. How is his conditioning? What is his likelihood of being able to be 360 pounds and use that mammoth size to his advantage if it's a hindrance, right? Because he's got some flexibility issues stemming from that midsection, stemming from right around, you know, the waist area. If he doesn't have that redirect and reactionary quickness and agility, is that going to work on the blind side against speed rushers in the NFL, let alone power rushers that could convert power to speed? I think that Monroe Freeling has a cleaner projection as far as he's already got the strength, he's already got the athleticism, he's already got the length and everything that you covet, that Dan Morgan covets, right? Because we're doing this as Dan Morgan too. Let's don't forget that. It's not just my evaluation with this. This is a Dan Morgan type of deal. I could see him absolutely loving the measurables for him. Now, you talk about this trade, though. You get a future second, and you only move back 3 picks. I think that there is a very good chance that they say that's plenty of value for us. We should take that. The other thing that we could do here, though, Edgar, and I know we're taking a long time on this first pick, but the other thing that we could do is we can send out offers to other teams and try to find a comparable trade that we like better than this. If we don't want a future second, if we say, hey, look, in this draft, I'm not as concerned with grabbing the 22nd pick in the first round. I'd be fine taking the 28th or the 30th pick in the first round if it gives me the 44th or the 52nd as well in the second round, because I think that the value of this draft class is round 2 and round 3 more so than the top part of round 1. The big question will be, though, is Monroe Freeling one of those guys that was in that top part of round 1 and he dropped into your lap right here?
I would, I guess, like thinking about it more, letting this seep in a little bit. I think if I had to guess, Dan Morgan would draft Monroe Freeling. One, like you said, physical thresholds, who he is. We talked about, blue chip programs. He's from Georgia. And so like all the things point to it. Premium position. And so I know people, are saying like, oh, the Panthers drafted wide receiver 2 years in a row. Should we draft another receiver? Luckily, we don't have to have that conversation with the top 3 wide receivers off the board. But they have shown a propensity to like make this also value as it pertains to the salary cap. So that's why I'm kind of out on Kenny and Sadiq. It's why I'm kind of out on Dylan Thielman, not because of their talents, but like I don't know. It could change that Brant Tillis, Eric Eager, Dan Morgan would say like, oh, let's invest in a non-premium position for 5 years and invest this much money. Like I still think they would like to get a premium position. And then lastly, Dan Morgan has shown a propensity to just get the guys that he wants. So like he had a chance to trade down last year, for those that forgot, to leave Tedero McMillan and let the Rams come up and get his pick. He said, no, I want my man and this is who I got, right?
Right.
2 years ago, he traded up for Xavier Leggett, traded up for Jonathan Brooks. And so the players that he wants, and I think Monroe Freeling is one of those guys. I don't think he messes around unless it's like same thing with Tedero McMillan last year. It has to be like an overpay versus like an even swap. Like you have to you have to give me like another number one pick if you want me to trade down.
Right.
But I don't think. I mean, we could explore those options, but I would guess that he would just say like, I'm sticking with Monroe Freeling.
And so they make the chat makes a good point here too, that if we're trying to
Mhm.
do this from a more realistic standpoint that we can, the likelihood of Harbaugh in that, Ozzie Newsome chain of front office executives that are there in LA, highly doubtful that they offer a second next year to go back 3 spots in the first round, right? That seems like a pipe dream in and of itself. Real quickly before we get any further into this. Hi, Mom. How you doing? I hope work is good. Okay, but the second part that I wanted to say is I did have an idea of where we could look at some value in some of these prospects. That if you
By
look
the way,
at,
that
you
was
brought
10
up,
minutes.
yeah, I know we're sending the card quick. Kenyon Sadiq is a name that you just brought up though, and Kenyon Sadiq is a name that Panthers fans talk often about, right? And a lot of times it's in that conversation of if it's best player available, if Kenyon Sadiq is there because there's no one else there. Monroe Freeling is a great example of how to value that and how Dan Morgan would value that. Do they see the premium value of a tight end against the premium value of an offensive tackle with the contracts and everything for those positions? But the other thing that I would point out is something that I did mention when we looked at the original picks, right? Dylan Thieneman here to the Dolphins at 11. The Dolphins in the trade that they just made, right, getting rid of Jalen Waddle, they got pick 30 right here from the Denver Broncos. Pick 30, they're not going to have their ability to grab one of these prime playmakers, most likely, like a Kenyon Sadiq. It's likely that maybe he's off the board by that point. Could they have interest in moving up to grab Kenyon Sadiq or to grab KC Concepcion or to grab, one of these other players, these offensive players, and say Denzel Boston, if they, for some reason, fall for that? If they enjoy those players and they say, hey, we can go get that. Do we, as Carolina, do we look at it and go to Miami and say, look, Miami, you got pick 30, right? Let's just look at their assets. We'll give you 19. You got 30 and you got 43. If that says close, we're not all the way there, right? They're not going to give you both of those. What if we went 30 and 43 for 19 and 83? Would that be value for you that you would like, Edgar?
For me personally, yes. Do I think Dan Morgan and company do it? It would be like the only time they've traded down, and again, we only have 2 years of sample size, was when they traded down 2 years ago, or is when they traded down from Xavier Leggett and dropped all the way back in the second round, and then they're like, oh, actually, we want to trade back up to get Jonathan Brooks. So the only time they've ever traded down, everything else has always been like a trade up, and so. Unless it's like, I know that we're doing this to get a likely accept. I feel like they would only do it if they're going to get an absolutely, like a no brainer. Like they have to come away with a steal. They're not going to trade down for an even value, if that makes sense, Ricky.
No doubt. But so is 30 and 43 though, man. I mean, you're bookending picks really close. And then you still got 51. So are you saying that this wouldn't move the needle enough that you would want to do like a 119 and 19? To get 30 and 43? Does that make it a little bit better?
Yeah, even better. One of the 5th round pick. I just want it to be like I feel like, and this could be, I could be wrong, and chat can correct me if I'm wrong. Ricky, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like all other teams make trades and it's like a steal. Like they got so much, they recruit so much value from their trade downs. And then when we do these mocks and then we see what the Carolina Panthers do, it's like, oh, it has to be like even. I think last year the biggest steal that we talked about was when Atlanta traded up to get James Pierce and the Rams got so much. It's like, so I always think like, why can't the Panthers be fortunate? Like obviously they wanted Tedero McMillan and the Rams probably had a very significant offer, but they probably said like, we're sticking to way above the formula or way above what the trade charts say. And so I wanted to be, if I was going to trade, if I'm Dan Morgan and I have Monroe Freeling and then the other person we haven't talked about, and I see in the chat also is Spencer Fano, is like, if I get the option of those two, right? Like you have to think about like, what am I giving away? The possibility of an offensive lineman that I can't get later on.
Yeah.
You have to convince me, like I'm not selling. You have to buy from me, and you have to buy from me with something that is like valuable, not something that's like an even trade.
Okay. So we get the feeling. Let's talk again from Dan Morgan's
Mhm.
perspective, okay?
Mhm.
Because that is how we want this mock draft to go. This isn't about what we would do individually right yet.
Mhm.
This is about Dan Morgan. I think I'm with you on Monroe Freeling being the kind of best player available that if he were to drop. My only issue with that is that I don't think it's realistic for this draft. I don't think that Monroe Freeling drops to 19. I do genuinely believe that he's going to be gone in the top 10 just
So
based
what if I
off
give you
of.
another?
Okay.
What if I give you another challenge, Ricky?
Oh, God. Okay.
What if we just say Monroe Freeling is not? I mean, obviously he's here, but let's just say off the board.
Look at these fools. Panthers on tap. Time is ticking, boys. Yeah, I know. We're doing a lot. And then you got big draft guy here says best player available here is Sadiq. Fits the bill as a guy for Dan. He doesn't hit the measurables for Dan and them. I'm just gonna put that out there. He does come short of what their typical things for tight end, their preferences for tight end thresholds. Athleticism,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got it. But I'm just not sure if we're doing this from a Morgan and Tillis standpoint. I don't know that I could see either of them saying that the tight end position is something that's that valuable to them that they take him here over some of these other prospects that are on the board. I do like Fano too. I like him a lot. He's my tackle 1 in my personal rankings. I think that what he has is not similar to Caden Proctor in like their game or what they bring from a physical standpoint, but they each have this almost safety net built in to what they are as
Mhm.
prospects. That if they're not the best at the premier thing that you're asking them to do, the premium position of playing tackle, if
Mhm.
Fano's length is a issue for him at the next level, and you got to kick
Mhm.
him to inside, whether it's as a guard or as a center, where he took snaps after the combine, which is super interesting because this dude is like ridiculously athletic and quick.
Mhm.
And you know, again, he's kind of got the play strength thing that people tag Lomu with, but I think that he's got the violent disposition that people like more with Spencer Fano. Um, I don't know, man. He's got that built in, and he can play right tackle. He's had a stint playing left tackle, so his versatility, his utility play, is also extremely appealing. I think for the Panthers, who have a world of hurt on the offensive line unit right now. I mean, that the Rasheed Walker stuff, Edgar, from today,
Mhm.
I think it really does sway me a little bit with how they feel, knowing that they got him for $4 million with a very incentive heavy contract, and that other teams were not looking for the 16 to 20 million that was projected for him, right? That they weren't comfortable
Mhm.
doing that. And he dropped all the way to 4. Tells me there could be a real situation that is worth considering, that if he is out, if we lose him for a certain amount of time, or if he goes through off-season surgery, I don't know what any of it is. We don't have any specifics
Mhm.
on what the health issue, right, was.
Mhm.
Who was it? Rosenthal that said it? I
Yeah.
believe it was Greg Rosenthal that said there were some
Yep.
physical issues. Then he
Yep.
says health related. I don't know
Mhm.
if that means he is due for surgery in the offseason and that they're not sure
Mhm.
about the recovery time, or that he already had surgery, or that he has an injury that they're going to try to heal without it, but that he could be a candidate for surgery in training camp or something like that. And if that happens, I don't know if everyone remembers, but the name is Stone Forsythe. That's the guy that we got up behind him that would be playing left tackle or right tackle if you're 33, 34-year-old. How old is Taylor Moton? I think he's 34, 32. I can't remember
Gosh,
now off the top of my head.
I'll look it up. But keep
Okay.
talking.
But he's had knee questions the past couple seasons. He's had some shoulder stuff. He's had
He's gonna
issues
be
that they are concerned. He's what, 32?
he's gonna be 32 when the season starts.
Okay.
He's currently 31.
It's a lot of question marks there, man. And the offensive line is a gigantic part to every football team, and specifically this Carolina Panthers team with their power run game that they like to run, the wide zone run game they like to run, being able to have guys get out into space, which Stone Forsythe isn't great in space. You don't necessarily want to have him doing that.
Mhm.
So I don't know, man. It's really tough for me. I think that we just gonna have to come to a consensus here what Dan Morgan would do. And I think you're leaning
Yeah.
towards Monroe Freeling. I just think that my issue is I don't think it's realistic that he's here. And you're right. We could just scrap it and say, let's act like he's not on here. But that changes because there's other players that would be on there possibly, right? If Monroe
True.
got picked.
I mean, like if we, in the spirit of realism, like
Yeah.
I don't mind passing on Freeling just to like play some scenario. I don't know if there's anybody who was picked above us that's a draft crush of yours or that you would have picked if like, they took Freeling and then someone else fell down. But like I'm willing to, and then for me, just thinking about what Dan Morgan likes, and you just alluded to it, Ricky. Like I do
Hmm.
think versatility is something, and this is another thing that's in the back of my mind. I think they value first round picks as like you have to play. I don't want to say day one, but you got to play. I can't imagine that. It's not like this is a Denver Broncos all in team. This is not, a Rams that we're going all in. Like if we're
Yeah.
gonna be drafting in the top 20, they got to get a path to playing time. And so I would think a guy like Caden Proctor, a guy like Spencer Fano, were like, I know the criticism about Caden Proctor is, his weight, right? So like
Hmm.
maybe he's better as a guard, maybe he's better on the right side. Spencer Fano, like he has length, his arm length is a concern. So maybe he's a right tackle. Maybe you could fit him in at left tackle. He,
Hmm.
like you said, he took snaps at center. And so like guys like Proctor, guys like Spencer Fano make a lot more sense to me as what the Panthers are looking for because there's a path to playing or a path for them to get playing time just in case it doesn't like Monroe. Let's just say Rasheed Walker blows the doors and does well. Like where you sit on Monroe Freeling, you sit on Caleb Lomu. Like where did they go? They just sit on your bench for most of the season. Not to say that this is my personal opinion, but I'm just thinking as a Panthers perspective, I'm investing a lot of money, a lot of assets, a lot of energy into my top 20 pick, and they don't have a path to playing.
So let's do this. We're going to remove Monroe Freeling from the conversation for a second because I don't think it's
Okay.
realistic that he'll be there. Um, and I do. You're right. If we're going to try to keep this the way that we want to keep it, we can look at some players and say, I doubt it, right? I doubt that's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Yeah.
Um, I think that Fino would probably be my pick here because I think that the utility, versatility that he has, being able to play
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, I think that there's a chance. You said path to play, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
chance that if they say, hey, look, he can be our backup to these other positions if something, break glass emergency type thing happens. But what if he
Mm-hmm.
beats out Fortner for the center job day one and he's your starting center? And then, God forbid, Moten goes down or Rasheed Walker goes down and you slide him over and you put Luke Fortner, who you kind of brought in as the expectations of being able to be a spot starter and come in. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have this awful situation and you're not playing musical chairs with Chandler Zavala. You got Luke Fortner, who was a starter last year for another team, who competed late in the season. And you've got Fano who can move over to left or right side and help out with that. So I like that. The only last thing I'll say is Jacoby here brings up the defensive tackle situation. We see Caleb Banks right
Mm-hmm.
there. I know you love Caden McDonald a lot as well. I think that the offensive line here has more value than either of those players. Caleb Banks, for me personally, the latest foot injury. I know it's very impressive that he still did all that stuff at the combine with that foot injury, a broken foot, running what he did, doing the vertical like he did. It is wildly impressive. But the broken foot, when they find stuff like that, you're out. You're out of the game if you're playing in the season. You're not playing anymore for a few weeks. They're going to do surgery. They're going to heal that. You're going to rest. You're going to heal that. This is his second one on a foot. And he's 330 pounds, 600 or 6'6", right? That's a large human being, man, to be having feet problem. And he's a 23-year-old rookie who has never had consistent tape or production. So, like, I'm personally out on Caleb Banks in the first round. I understand that he has like A1 tools and traits that could be a difference maker. I don't think that we're in a position to take a guy that maybe plays 3 or 4 games and has 2 of those as good ones. That scares me personally. So I think if we're looking at it from Dan, Fano makes a lot of sense here for me. How do you feel about that pick?
Yeah, for me, I see Fano and I see Caden Proctor. I know I'm on a limb here, and
Yep.
I'm in the minority, but I'm a Proctor fan. Just as a pure just watching football. Let's like I know he's gotten beat, and I know he's got he doesn't have the most impressive win rates in terms of blocking, but just as a gigantic man who runs wildcat and screams. Again, this is not why you draft him, but like as a coach, you like, oh, just give me a ball of clay and I could make it, I could make this work. I think his
Mm-hmm.
weight, even though it's still over, like it's still 350 pounds, is still way over what their typical is. But like you like to see, because he was reported to have been weighing over close to 400 pounds, if not over 400 pounds during the season,
Mm-hmm.
which is why people are saying like, oh, maybe he did better at the end of the season because he's starting to get his weight down. So that's just a personal preference. But if I had to predict, between Fano and Caden Proctor, I think he would take Fano because he could play,
Yeah.
theoretically, he could play all 5 positions.
Right. And Proctor, if he gets limited to inside its guard, I think that Fano gives you a really nice backup plan for if there's an issue or if Taylor Moton retires, right? Like I like Fano, I think, for the long term and for the immediate possibility of being able to contribute this year. I think the value of drafting him here is greater than drafting a defensive tackle here, because I do think there are defensive interior players in round 2, round 3, that if that's the way you want to go and just fortify the trenches, I think there's room to do that. That maybe even offer a little bit more pass rush as well.
I will say that for this to make the value work, he has to be eventually the left tackle, the right tackle of the future. Because if you're just drafting him to be the center, this is a very, very, very high top 20 pick just for a center. So, and obviously he has versatility. That's what you want. But I would suspect, like, after the draft, they're like, oh, we envision him as a tackle. If there's needs arises, we can put him in any of the 5 spots in the offensive line. But they can't just say, like, we draft him to be the center of the future. That'd be like a very, very, very very good. He's very good, but just very, very expensive.
But 19, it's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we just saw them. They weren't even willing to pay Cade Mays. I mean, obviously he might be better than Cade Mays, but you could see like how much they value the center position, that they could have just re-signed Cade Mays if they really wanted to.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, man.
So just to clarify,
so what does Dan Morgan? Yeah. So what does Dan Morgan do? We're gonna make this pick here in like a minute. Yeah. What does Dan Morgan do?
So we're both in agreement for Fano, but like, is this also your, like, what you would do, Ricky? Or would you do something different?
I would probably trade it.
Okay.
I think. Okay. Because of what you just said about Fano, is my personal opinion as well. I really do want to see measurements again with him. Length didn't look to be an issue on tape for him. I would like to see that. We've heard about the combine having some issues with the way that they did measurings. And I would like to see if his arms aren't 32 and a half, right? Something like that, 30, closer to 33, which is still below the threshold for the Panthers, but makes you feel a little bit better about the situation. I can't remember exactly what his arms measured in. They were, let me look actually.
32 and 1/8.
32 and 1/8, right.
Yep.
So if he's closer to 33, let's just, for shits and gigs here, Edgar, let's say he's 32 and 7/8, right? That makes you feel a little bit better about that right side playing and being a stalwart as your right tackle. I think that he can play tackle regardless. I think that he's a really good football player. His athleticism, his reaction, his plan, his hand usage. I mean, he is a tremendous football player, and I think he's a good pick. But I think that I personally would probably trade this pick looking at the list of players that are there. If you got somebody that wants to give you anything, I'd probably make that trade.
I would still be a little nervous in terms of like them being comfortable with his arm length.
So are we sure that they're comfortable with it here to take him at 19? Edgar, this is getting crazy.
But let's just look at current measurables, right? Stone Forsythe. I mean, we all have our concerns about him. 34+ inch arms. Iki Kwanu, 34-inch plus arms. Taylor Moen, 34-inch plus arms, right? Rasheed Walker, a little bit smaller, 33 and change inch arms. Yeah. And he comes in less than 33. So we're talking about a complete outlier. Not to say that he can't be good, but it would be something completely they haven't crossed that path.
Maybe we're big braining. Maybe we're big braining this whole Monroe Freeling thing too, though, acting like he's not on the board. Because if he's not on the board, if he goes 11 to Miami, because Miami needs offensive line help too. If he goes 11 to Miami, then Dylan Thieneman is here, and I would be advocating for taking Dylan Thieneman here. So maybe we just need to play it if they're available on this board. Maybe we just need to take who's available on this board and not do the hypothetical thing.
Okay. Monroe Freeling.
Send it in. Yeah, send it in. But you know what I mean, though, by that? We did all that talking just to go with the person that we wanted to go with immediately, right? Like, I know how ridiculous that was, chat. I understand it entirely. That is the process that Edgar and I literally, when we talk about things, it is exactly like that, where we do a Indy 500 amount of laps around the racetrack just to end up at the starting line where we were at the beginning. All right. So Monroe Freeling is the pick that we make there. That's Dan Morgan's pick. It's also the pick that I personally think that I would have made there, Edgar. If he was sitting right there, I think that I'm taking him regardless.
I'm clocking us at 10 minutes, by the way, whenever we begin our second round discussion.
Okay, here we go. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, so we did not trade, so we still have our coaches challenge on the board, Edgar. We are being offered pick 64 and pick 96 from Seattle for 51 and 200. I like the value, a decent amount there. It's not like a home run necessarily, but it's pretty good. 57 and 129 for pick 51. I don't care about losing pick 200. I would rather have pick 96, but moving back only 6 spots is pretty appealing there as well. So keep those in mind. But I got to look at who's available because we just took the left tackle of the future, right? You got Omar Cooper Jr. Hey, Edgar, you ever heard of Omar Cooper Jr.?
He sounds familiar, but
sounds familiar, right?
I feel like he's
is he what you would consider a draft crush for you, Edgar?
I love Omar Cooper Jr. I think a combination of him as a player, but also kind of what we've been talking about, what the Panthers need in their wide receiver room. Just someone who could just get easy yards. Like I feel like every time other than like in the playoff game when Jalen Coker went off, the Tedder Millen, fourth down, catch and run. Like I just need someone that could just I can give it to you, like Dan Morgan said, I can give somebody a short distance and they can just take it, an extra 5 yards, extra 8 yards. Let's make the game easier for Bryce Young. But yeah, I mean, I don't love him in terms of we would have picked him in pick 19, but he's just a fun player to watch.
So is that your number one that you like here? Just looking at the top names here. Now, for me, AJ Halsey also sticks out. You talk about a deep safety being able to come in. They did sign Nick Scott. I think AJ Halsey would serve as a upgrade there. Big time playmaker, played at Houston, transferred to LSU. The interceptions transferred with him. His playmaking, I mean, he's a tremendous player. He's got great range. He plays from depth. He can play up close to the line. Offers a little bit of the versatility. I don't think he's quite as rangy as Dylan Thieneman. I don't think he's quite as sure of a tackler as Dylan Thieneman. But Dylan Thieneman also is one of my draft crushes. He has been before it was popular. I was a Dylan Thieneman hipster, Edgar, right? Like I was frequenting that establishment before it was trendy. But I do also think that when you see names like Keontae Scott, D'Angelo Pons, the position of nickel corner or nickel defensive back, however you want to look at it, I think is a point of emphasis for this Panthers team in this draft. I think that they are going to be very intentional about filling that role. Kamari Ramsey is a player that makes some sense in that regard. You see Josiah Trotter's name there. Moving down a little bit further just to kind of look, just because these are the rankings of PFF does not mean these are the rankings of Dan Morgan and the Carolina Panthers. You have to look at what would they value. Here's a name that a lot of people really want us to take in the second round, Jacob Rodriguez. There are people that believe Jacob Rodriguez should be a pick at 19, right? So there are some possibilities here. Yes.
We got some breaking news here.
Oh.
So we need we need a breaking news drop or sound or whatever.
Do we have any kind of thing like that? Maybe. I don't
know. This is according to Jordan Schultz. Source: the Panthers are signing former Packers and Eagles running back A.J. Dillon to a 1-year deal.
The quad father, huh? Okay. What do you think about that?
I mean, it adds depth to the room. I don't think I mentioned it because I don't know if it changes. If we're thinking about drafting a running back, we do have
I wasn't
an AJ Dillon.
I wasn't, man. I'm gonna level with you. I wasn't thinking it. Unless it's like pick 200 down there, but I'm probably not spending any pick on a running back. But AJ Dillon is interesting.
I mean, for me, I've always wanted a bigger back. So I mean, he weighed at the combine at 247 pounds. So
that's a bigger back.
That's a big back, as the kids would say. But I would say that I've always said 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. We always make our lives miserable because Bryce Young is not doing a sneak, and then we don't have any big running back, so he could fill that role if we need someone to churn. I don't even know if he makes the team, right? So
Yeah. Oh man. See, they're talking about Jacob Rodriguez. I don't know, man. I'm trying to get back into this idea of these prospects being here. Cooper Jr. is tough to pass on because of what he offers. When you look at the cornerbacks, though, Tre'Davious Stukes is another guy, though, that I think will firmly be in play at pick 51 if they're comfortable with the age and the injury history for Stukes. Stukes, I believe, has the potential to be the best nickel in this draft by far. You remember a guy that I liked. You remember a guy I liked a lot last year, right? Jacob Parrish.
Yep.
These are different physical profiles with Stukes and Parrish, but there is an element to their game, Edgar, that reminded me so much of why I like Jacob Parrish as much. And I thought back to our episode that we did about Jacob Parrish. It was his ability to recover. If he was behind his receiver, if he got beat at the snap, right? And his player gained leverage on him, Jacob Parrish had this innate ability, and it was because of his physical speed, right? He had explosive burst and great long speed, but he also just had the length. He had shorter arms, right? But he had the length for his frame and the timing to be able to get back into position to dislodge the ball or to break it up or to tackle immediately. He was rarely beat for explosives. He was always quick back to the ball, even to the point of making plays. Stukes reminds me a lot of that. But what he brings is he brings this big time physical frame too. This guy actually has long arms, right? Like this guy is a long physical 6'1", 190. I got to look at the arm length here to confirm. Let me look at it. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm on my little soapbox.
You're good.
31 and 6'8", so 31 and 3/4, almost 32-inch arms. I don't know, man. I don't know.
So me thinking about like what the Panthers would do, I'm still in this mindset. I know like 2 years ago they got Jonathan Brooks, and I feel like that was kind of an outlier because he was the first running back off the board. He was coming off an ACL, and so they kind of went for it because he was going to be the number one he was the number one drafted running back, or But I do think, again, all just speculation here. Like they want to spend at least round 1 and round 2 at premium positions and and fortify like the money they have to save on this person. And so like I love the nickels here. I love D'Angelo. Like I myself, if I had to pick a team, like I would love D'Angelo Pons, and I would love. I told you Tre'Davious Stukes is one of my draft crushes, but like I'm trying to restrain myself and say like, okay, like let's get a premium position these first 2 rounds, and then maybe round 3 for me is kind of like, and round 4 is kind of like where I'm looking at nickel, where I'm looking at center if we don't draft the center early, because those are like non-premium positions, and like if I want to really, and obviously all things even, like get the better player. I'm not gonna say take the worst receiver because it's a wide receiver. Like if we have a wide receiver like Omar Cooper or a really good receiver that's here, and they're just as good as nickel, like give me the premium position.
No doubt about it. I agree with that. I'm just, we're talking about doing one for my personal pick and then one for what we envision Dan doing. And I think you're spot on with that. I think that they would have a hard time, just from what I know about Dan, from what I know about what they've talked about with this team and what they want to build with this team. Omar Cooper fits it to a T for me personally. Just to throw one last wrinkle here, you got Malachi Lawrence there, and we know that this is a premier position as well. They did spend good money on a premier player in Jalen Phillips. They did spend premier draft capital last year, or round 2 and round 3 on rookies. Good return on Nick Scorton, Princely Umamielon still to be determined, but they seem to still believe in him, still seem to have plans for him. Malachi Lawrence doesn't intrigue you or anything here, right?
He intrigues me if there was no Omar. Like if Omar Cooper's off the board, he might be my number 1 choice. So
all right, so we're going Omar Cooper.
He'd be my second choice.
So you want to go Omar Cooper, right?
Yeah, and then who's what you would do?
In this exact situation, I would probably go Omar Cooper as well, to be completely honest. Just because I don't anticipate him being here, but for the sake of what we talked about with Monroe Freeling, we're playing this the way that the simulator gives it to us, right? Yeah. And we're doing it the way that Dan Morgan would attack a draft if all of these things fell to him. And I think Omar doesn't have to play in just a slot. Omar can be your move receiver, right? Which gives a little bit of flexibility again for Tedero McMillan to still enter into the slot, for Jalen Coker to still take advantage and enter into the slot. And then Omar Cooper could be your Z, your move. I just think that from a manufactured touches type deal, he gets stuff right away. All of the crying for hoping Jimmy Horn Jr. gets more involved. Jimmy Horn Jr. may get more involved, but if you're hoping that Jimmy Horn Jr. can take a 7-yard slant and make 3 guys miss and fight through contact, it's probably not going to happen, right? That's what Omar Cooper can do. And Omar Cooper can give you the tough yardage. Omar Cooper can give you the, hey, it's a comeback drill. Bryce is scrambling. It's a creating situation, second play phase. Omar Cooper is the kind of player that you want in that regard. So, yeah, let's go Omar here. Omar Cooper, send it in.
Yep. And that just came in just under 10 minutes, Ricky.
Are you serious? We did it.
Yeah.
We did it. All right.
Just hit the 10 minute.
I'm not taking that pick either. I keep 83 here. I mean, I'm getting to the point, Edgar, where I think that we're probably not going to be making any moves now at this point.
Yep.
Dominique Orange. This is a player I would be intrigued by, Edgar, to be completely honest. You talk about interior presence, the big citrus here. If you like Caden McDonald, I think that Dominique Orange offers similar play style, and that he also offers a tiny bit more on the way of, I wouldn't say pass rush necessarily, but he could overpower people, right? You see the length there with almost 34-inch arms. This is a player I think they could be intrigued by. But let's look at who else is on the board. Skylar Bell is a guy that if we had not went Omar Cooper, I like Skylar Bell a real good bit. Michael Trigg. Any positions you want me to show?
I'd like to see like the nickel safety spots. Yeah, we still got Trey Stooks.
Yeah, see, I'd probably go Trey Stooks there, to be honest, if it was my individual play. I think that that's a huge one. I like Keyshawn Elliott as well, the linebacker here. I'm a big fan of him. Safety-wise, you still got Bud Clark, Zakee Wheatley. I know a lot of people like as a deep safety, free safety, center fielder type player. Genesis Smith, and people also like very much. This was Trey Stooks' teammate. Very rangy, long length, ball magnet, gets the ball. Jalen Kilgore is there. We talked about him. Interior defensive lineman. We talked about the big citrus. Darrell Jackson Jr., I think, is also a guy they could be intrigued by with his size, his length. His arms are almost 35 or over 35-inch arms. This is a big guy as well. He's older, 23-year-old rookie. On offense, I do want to go real quickly to a couple spots if we can, though, and look at the center position. Brian Parker II out of Duke was a former tackle. He's going to be one of those almost Brady Christensen type of situations where do you try to let him fail at tackle first, or do you immediately kick him in, sort of like a Graham Barton from Duke? I think that he is a really good utility player that you can make a lot of sense for. Burton right here out of Kentucky, that's your guy, Edgar, and I like him a lot too. Now, he has experience playing guard, has experience playing center this past season for Kentucky. I think that versatility of guard or center, I like a whole lot. I think that makes a ton of sense for what they're doing, especially when you say, where's Robert Hunt in 2 years? Is he in Carolina? Where's Robert Hunt in 1 year? Damian Lewis, tremendous. Luke Fortner, if he's not as good as what they're hoping he is, what is his prognosis? And then guard, you also have Keelan Rutledge, who got some center snaps after the combine as well, and center snaps at the Senior Bowl, who I think makes a lot of sense for what Dan likes. His size is very similar to Cade Mays, by the way. 6'4", about 320, 325. He's got him listed as 316. I thought he weighed in a little heavier. Then Billy Schroth, I believe it is. Notre Dame guard. I know you and I both like him a lot. He also took snaps at center after the combine. So that's where I would lean here, is I would look at the interior offensive line. I would look at Dominique Orange, or I would look at Trey Stooks, are the players that stick out to me. What say you, Dan Morgan?
I think he would lean towards, trenches first. I'm not in love with Big Citrus or any, like, after that top wave of Caleb Banks and Caden McDonald, like, I feel like there's a bigger drop off and I'm not in love with them. Mike Kay, reporter for the Chicago Observer, dropped a little nugget in one of his mailbags recently. He felt like someone asked him, like, is there any positions that we're good at that not to anticipate any more free agents or draft signing? He said, he said it feels like nose tackle or that the big beefy mammoth defensive lineman. He feels like they already have enough depth there with Bobby Brown, with Cam Jackson,
Yeah.
LeBron. So maybe reading tea leaves, and Mike K's as plugged in as ever, as anyone else. I would feel like, okay, maybe I need to shy away from those nose tackles and more towards, if we draft a defensive lineman, more towards the smaller pass rushing type, like what Turk Morton is supposed to be.
Sure.
That's what I'm looking at.
Like my guy Grayson Halton, who is not there anymore.
Like your guy Grayson Halton. So I would say, I mean, I'm biased. I'm trying to be Dan Morgan, but I also not trying not to be biased. But
yeah,
Trey Dan Stukes is the guy that I would pick.
Yeah.
Big size, big, love his size, ball skills, and like his athleticism. Like I feel like they also lean towards like real, like they got Xavier Leggett, Jonathan Brooks was injured, Tedero McMillan, Nick Scordon. Like they get like really good Princely Umam Trevin Wallace. Like they get these like in these these first 2 days of drafting, they get athletes. They don't get like non-athletes. And so if you're not a top athlete, I think they wait until day 3. And for me, I feel like if he's still there, Trey Stukes would be like, it'd be my pick. And I would think that they would like to go in that direction.
I'm going to run through the chat real quick just so that we bring in the listeners. By the way, listeners, about 500 of you here right now with us on a random Wednesday lunchtime or breakfast time, depending on which side of the continent or country, not continent. You're all on the same side of the continent if you're in America with us. But I appreciate that. So thank you for everyone for joining in. Get in the chat, jump in. We got super chats if you want us to speak about any prospects specifically. By all means, jump in. Zachary East, my guy Zach, isn't round 2 8 minutes because we were patting ourselves on the back for 10 minutes. It is, but our round 2, Zach, our round 2 was 10, and we did it. Okay, don't you diminish our love for the fact that we stayed under 10 minutes for a pick. I like Big Citrus. Is Bud Clark there? I believe Bud was in there, right? Yeah, Bud was still there. He's down there. Katie, Panther signed AJ Dillon. They sure did, Katie. Zach likes Zaki Wheatley there. A lot of people asking about center. What are center and the tight ends? We can wait on center. T. Thompson keeps on saying, because T. Thompson is correct here too. This is a deep center class. He says, don't take center here. Take center at pick 157. Center is deep. I don't know that I wait until 157, but we do have pick 119 coming up. That's where I would look, and I would get ahead of the run on centers, Edgar, personally. I think that would be my approach, and I think that looking at this, I'm with you 1,000%. I know that they want to address the nickel position. I know that they do. I agree with Mike K about the interior depth. I think the only way that I would add to it is just like you said earlier, is if there was a premier pass rushing interior defender. And that's Grayson Halton for me. If Grayson Halton is here at 83, I would even consider Grayson at 51. But at 83 here, it would be a home run, and I would take it, and I would run away laughing the entire time, right? I'd feel great about it. But for me personally, and for what I think Dan Morgan would look at this, Trey Dan Stukes gives you the versatility to also play safety if you need him to. If you have him down in nickel packages, you know, the 4-2-5 that we run a lot, I think that you have that flexibility of disguise coverages as well, post-snap rotation, that if he's down in the nickel position, you can easily see Evero pushing him back and sending him to the deep third when you have your safety shift forward, right? I think that is also an absolute possibility with somebody like Stukes because of his range, because of his positional versatility. So for me, this is a no-brainer, to be completely honest. I'm taking Trey Dan Stukes. The only one I want to mention, Edgar, real quickly, is the guy that just blew up his pro day today here in the round 3, is Oscar Delp. Because I think that with this showing at the pro day and the way that a lot of teams have seemingly, if you kind of like read some of the insiders and the way that they speak about teams, the way that they evaluate this position, I think Oscar Delp is going to gain some steam as a day 2 player. With his size, with his well-rounded profile, it's going to be difficult to find a tight end in this class that has all of it the way that Oscar Delp does, coming from a big-time program that's coming proven blocker, proven receiver, good in the rack phase of the game. I do think that he is going to be in the conversation there because I think that he is a real upgrade. I don't know that I would take him over Stukes for this team because I think that they like Tommy Tremble. They just drafted Mitch Evans. And I do think that they still are hopeful about JT Sanders, perhaps a little bit more than I am. But I think that they're not ready to cut the cord necessarily there. But I wanted to bring that name up just because I knew he was going to be further down here in the rankings. But for me personally, he's much higher than that. All right, let's go Stooks here. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Is he also what you would do?
He is. I would go Stooks here. I would really consider Stooks
here.
Yeah, we are, but I would really consider going Stooks at 51 as well, to be honest. Like, we're talking about getting good players that I think have great value and fill need without reaching for need, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to draft for need, but I love it when need meets my favorite and best player and highest ranked sitting there together, right? And Trey Stooks, I mean, I've got Trey Stooks as my cornerback 4 or 3 right now. So, I mean, it's not like it's a, yeah, you need a nickel, go get a nickel. No, Stooks is the real deal. He's a really good football player. So let's take a look at our first 3 picks here. Monroe Freeling, Omar Cooper Jr., Trey Stooks. I got to tell you, I love it. I'd be ecstatic. Those are 3 knockout picks to me.
Yeah.
And they feel very Dan Morgan-y, right?
Yeah, and one thing we haven't talked about, the way that they set up free agency this year and the way that they played at the end of last year, I mean, making the playoffs last year, like they've really set themselves up. I know it's a cliche at this point, but in terms of drafting best player available, like you can be like these wildly successful teams and just when you're drafting later on in the rounds, you could just sit back and wait for guys to fall. So maybe it's not Monroe Freeling, maybe it's not Omar Cooper, but maybe it's another player that falls. We see it every year. You know, Will Johnson fell last year. Other great players fall every year. And so even though maybe Freeling, Cooper, and Stooks would be an embarrassment of riches, like it could be somebody else. But this playing so well and filling all your major needs in free agency allows you to do something like this.
Exactly. And for this one, no matter how unlikely it is that all 3 of these guys drop, our point of this exercise today, doing this mock draft in the mindset of Dan Morgan, was to attack whoever is on the board the way that we envision Dan Morgan attacking whoever is on the board. And for this exercise, I think that those 3 players fit that to a T of, hey, we're going best player available. If it happens to fit our needs, wonderful. Monroe Freeling maybe doesn't play. Maybe he beats Rasheed Walker out, though, in camp. And maybe Rasheed Walker is your backup tackle. And Monroe Freeling is your day 1 left tackle, right? Then it gives you some flexibility with Icky as he fights his way back from injury. Omar Cooper Jr., he's going to play. He's got what you're missing on the offensive side of the ball, right? Traden Stooks, he's going to compete with Shaw Smith Wade. I think he's going to beat him, right? Like, I think that that's your guy. But now we move into this pick in round 4, pick 119. Here's the board of availability. Darrell Jackson Jr. is still there. That is a big body for the interior of the defensive line, but we just talked about it. I'm not exactly sure that that's the route that I would go. But at round 4, it starts to become a little bit more intriguing, right? Sam Roush, the tight end out of Stanford. This is the Yak or the Raz guy. Relative athletic score of 9.94, 6'6", 267. He does have short arms. His arms are very short, especially for his size. They fall very short of the threshold for the Carolina Panthers typically. Any positions that you want to take a look at here, Edgar? Safety maybe is where I would look a little bit.
I'd also look at center. I know we talked about center, tight ends.
That's right. We did talk about center. We did not draft those. So you still got Brian Parker there, who again has that versatility that I like a whole lot. Guard wise, Bo Stevens, I believe, could play center. I think Jaden Roberts, they had him take some snaps, I believe. Kobe Baines, I think that we met with Kobe recently. I believe that was Justin Mello. Used to write for Draft Network, and I think now he's on SI Draft. I believe that he said that they had met with Baines, if I'm remembering that correctly. Brian Parker's interesting there, though.
Brian Parker's interesting.
I think that versatility would be interesting for them. I think that the success that they saw of Brady Christensen kicking in may appeal to them when you talk about Brian Parker. There may be some,
another one that fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say another one that fits that mold is Trey Zune,
Trey Zune. Yep.
187. Also a tackle, but has played all across the line.
Mm-hmm.
Good size, 6'6", 312. He also has the shorter arms, but
Mm-hmm.
um, he would get to be in a similar role as Brian Parker. But just throwing it out there is another guy that has that versatility.
I was trying to think of what his age was. I thought that he was an older prospect. I could be wrong about that though. I think that Chase Basantes, I think, was a younger guy. I think he was like 21 or 22, but I thought that Trey Zune was older.
Trey Zune is 23, but he'll be turning 24 in the middle
Yeah.
of the season.
Yeah. Okay. And when you get down into these later picks, the age is a bit less of a focal point, but it still is. If this guy's not going to play immediately, right, and you're talking about like a 1 or 2 years later type of situation to find out what you got in him, he's a 26-year-old in his first action in the NFL. And if he's good, you got to pay a 27-year-old for his second contract, right? So it's just one of those conversations that I think that they do get into a little bit. I see again, I'm going to put the T. Thompson. We can wait on center, guys. T. Thompson does not want us drafting a center until later. Does not want it. I hear you, but you know, the other thing is if you wait, and I love Logan Jones. Logan Jones is my center too. I think he's tremendous, but Logan Jones can only play center, right? So if we're talking about a guy that you're trying to get a little extra for, then maybe you have to start looking at some of these other guys. Zach East asks, why is Parker at center? He's a career right tackle. He is someone I would take to replace Timo long term. So Brian Parker was actually a center recruit at a high school. So that is where he played beforehand. Duke has moved him around. He's played a couple different spots at Duke, but teams have asked him, and he did it at the Shrine Bowl, I believe it was that he was at. And the Combine teams have asked him to kind of demonstrate that he's got the ability to play center at the next level because of the arm length, because of just, you know, his athleticism, what he could bring to it. I think they like him a little bit better in that phone booth type of situation than they like him in space. He's not as much of an athlete as Graham Barton, the former Duke tackle that everybody, you know, will say that they're the same. He's not as much of an athlete as him. So I think that they're worried about his feet in space or his feet on an island if you had those same concerns about Graham Barton and he's maybe not up to that same caliber. All right, so Edgar, tell me if you want to see another position. Tell me if you want to see defense. Also, I think you could look at linebacker here. I still think is a spot that I would take a look at. They still need depth there. As far as an edge rusher, I don't think that the value's there on any of these players right now for an edge rusher. Mason Krieger is one guy that I would look at still. I think he's going to go a little bit higher than that last pick of the draft where a lot of these simulators have him go. I do like Keyshawn Elliott a whole lot. You know, I'm a Red Murdoch guy. Caleb Elam's Orr also is a guy that I'm very high on. Bryce Betcher is a guy that I like. Torian York, I love. I don't think they're going to have anything to do with Torian York. I think that his size takes him off the board for the Carolina Panthers, to be completely honest. All right, so what do you think? Anything you want to look at?
The last one, can we see tight end?
Tight end. So you got Roush, Texas A&M, Nate Borkacher. This is a guy
I guess
he's the blocking tight end that didn't get a whole ton of usage, but has some of the traits, has some of the tools that you might like. Joe Royer is the kind of like move guy. I believe he started at Ohio State, moved down over to Cincinnati. Eli Raridan, shout out JJ Panthers culture, 6'6", 245, 966 relative athletic score. If you want to just build a room full of Notre Dame tight ends. Dallin Bentley is a guy a lot of people like. I like Tanner Koziel a good bit. And then there's still Oscar Delp there.
Are we taking Delp off the board?
Nah, he's there. Delp is still there. I ain't going to take him out because, look, he's a little bit, you know, he's got injury stuff that you're going to have to move through and make sure everything is okay. The production isn't there for Delp. Like, I know the usage is strange and he was probably misused, but the production isn't there. So it's still something that you have to project for him. And I think that that's fair. So it's possible that he's there at the beginning of round 4. Jatavian Sanders is a guy, remember, in his draft class that everyone was, is he possibly as good as Brock Bowers, right? He had all the production, he had all the athletic catching, hands or whatever from high school, and he dropped to round 4. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not taking anyone off the board. I'm playing this the way the simulator gives it to me.
Yeah. Man, this is hard. I don't love. Is our guy Billy Schrouth gone too?
Let's check. I believe he was. Yes. Billy went. Billy went. Jay Barham there went at 115 is another guy. Edgar, you and I might even have to do like a whole nother episode on Jay Barham one day, because I am like wildly intrigued with the idea of him as a primarily off-ball guy, with his size and his physicality, his reaction speed, and then the ability to rush the passer. But the instincts aren't really there as an off-ball guy for the most part. But man, I love the possibility of it. Like you have brought it back into my head, and I have been watching Jay Barham when I'm not even supposed to be watching Jay Barham. And it's actually a little bit of an annoyance, Edgar, that you have caused in my life.
Sorry, I was just.
Yeah, I know.
I just asked for your opinion.
And now you're going to get it every day for the rest of your life. Yeah, Billy Schroth went 106 there. So you can see like some of these guys did start flying off the board. Like right after we took Trey Stooks. Keelan Rutledge went 2 picks later. That's a guy that I do think they could have some interest in. Your guy Burton went at pick 90. So there's definitely the interior offensive linemen are starting to hear their names called a little bit in this draft. DJ Campbell there at 118.
In a dream world, like just in a vacuum, like not looking at the board, like I'd love to see. I know T. Thompson wants us to wait on center, but I would love to see like a guard center in this area, whether it's Brian Parker, whether it's Trey Zune, just somebody like I feel like that particular position as we get later on in the draft gets dry, and so if we don't get, I know if we want to wait on a center like Parker Brailford, Logan Jones, they'll be there. Again, if I'm predicting what they would do, I think they don't want, as much as possible, they're going to try to avoid drafting like a pure center only, just because they're planning for all different scenarios.
So is that where you would go here? If you're Dan Morgan now, you're Dan. You're not any of these other voices in your head. You also got Malik Muhammad, who they said that you're planning on meeting. He's right here, and there's some interest between the two. And what's interesting when you start looking at a guy like Malik Muhammad as well, you're talking about a possible contingency plan, succession plan for Mike Jackson if you don't rework something with him and his contract is over at the end of this year and he gets a big payday elsewhere. So that is something to consider when you look at some of these other players. A Malik Muhammad, a Julian Neal, a Hezekiah Masses. Devin Marshall is a guy that I like a good bit. And then you even have some of the tall Washington corners, right? Ephesians Prysock, Tacario Davis. Those are names that I think could play. DJ Harvey, I believe, met with the Panthers at one of the All-Star games at a USC. So yeah, there's some options there.
Other one that I think that could dry up in terms of like, I know there's a lot of them that you like, but I do like Red Murdoch as a linebacker in terms of like a ball, like in terms of like a, all over the place, ball skills, like person that forces turnovers kind of guy. Like I also like that aspect of him. And then as we get later on, I know we're gonna run out of time here, but like as we go through later on too, I'm thinking about guys that play special teams as well, because these day 3 guys, if you're gonna make the bottom of a position group or position room, you have to offer more utility than just only play that position. And so having a guard center versatility, being a linebacker or corner that also plays special teams, like it's a must at this level of the draft, because if you can only play your position, then you might not make the team. Like last year, it was the Rams. They had a linebacker, Chris Paul.
Yep.
And everyone's like, oh my gosh, the Rams cut him or whatever. And he's really good. He was really good in the preseason. But like, if you don't offer any utility on special teams and you're not the top player, then you don't make the team.
Yep. All right. So you're Dan Morgan. What you gonna do? Because we got about 15-ish minutes, 18-ish minutes to get through 3 picks, Edgar.
Okay. I'm gonna throw out some names and let me see what you think.
Okay.
I'm thinking Brian Parker.
Okay.
I'm thinking Red Murdoch.
Okay.
And I'm thinking Oscar Delp.
Brian Parker or Oscar Delp would be what I would do there. Red Murdoch, I don't think he's going to go that early. I think that Red Murdoch, and I like him. You know, I'm a Red Murdoch fan. That was a guy that you and I spoke about way early, before we even got into all this stuff. But the Keyshawn Elliott, the Caleb Elam's Orr, and the Bryce Betcher still being on the board.
Okay.
I like all of them as well. So I would hold off on that position. As far as the center position, I do think that Brian Parker is my favorite if you want a combo player of who's remaining there. Logan Jones is my favorite pure center. Logan Jones is also going to be a 25-year-old who will only play center, right? And then Oscar Delp, I think, is light years ahead of pretty much everybody else that's available there. So I don't know that they... Oh, man, I just don't know that they're going to add to that room. 4 tight ends, they're not going to carry. They just signed James Mitchell back.
One other breadcrumb that Mike K left for us is like, we don't know what the recovery is like for Jatavian Sanders. And there's the timeline is not there. He could be out very little. He could be out for a longer time.
But could it be on like could he be on like the PUP list to start the season or something like that possibly?
Yeah, like he had surgery. He had an injury late in the season. We haven't had any updates. So like, how did the Panthers feel about that? I don't know. And do they feel like they can survive with, and then even, I love the governor. I love James Mitchell, but then all of a sudden your depth is tested, right? Because like they ran a lot of 3 tight end sets last year. And so if you're running with Sanders on the injured list, Evans, Tremble, Mitchell, and then, essentially nobody else, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. And then I don't know how they feel about Sanders after, last year was a little bit of a low production, a little bit of disappointment from what you were expecting from him last year.
So how do you feel about Oscar Delp then? Is that what we talked ourselves into? Or are we at Oscar Delp or Brian Parker for Dan Morgan? If you're Dan Morgan, these are your 2 options. Brian Parker or Oscar Delp?
I'm going to guess Brian Parker.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Brian Parker.
And what would you do?
I would take Oscar Delp.
Okay. And the only reason why I passed on Delp, and I know he's better, is because there's a possibility, like, this is a very deep tight end class. I forgot which draft analyst is like, there's draftable tight ends up and down the board, not at the level of Delp, but like, we can get a pretty good one, especially like a blocking one. I know Ricky and I have talked about blocking tight ends.
Yep.
They'll be there.
No doubt about it. And look, we could say not at the level of Oscar Delp, but Oscar Delp, as we just talked about, doesn't have the production. He's not some like, hey, this guy is a massive, volume target tight end in the pass game. He is the best blocking tight end in the class. Like he's neither of those things. It is a projection with Oscar Delp. It's not as similar as saying, hey, Colston Loveland, man, he's an athletic freak. He's a size matchup nightmare and he blocks really well. That's Colston Loveland. That's not Oscar Delp. Tyler Warren, also different prospect. Kenyon Sadiq is a different prospect. You know what I mean? Like you talked about it as far as like the blocking tight ends available. There are guys. There's 2 guys that I absolutely love. They're at the bottom of these rankings. That's Will Kasmarek down here from Ohio State and Matthew Hibner for SMU. They're right there at 375 and 384. And I love both of them. I think they're both tremendous players. Tanner Koziel, if you're just looking for a receiving threat, I think you could do way worse than ending up with Tanner Koziel in round 5 or 6. That's a fun prospect. But looking at our picks, and Edgar, we got about 13-ish minutes, 13 to 18 minutes that we need to finish this up. We got 3 picks, 158, 159, 200. We have gotten an offensive tackle, left tackle. Monroe Freeling fell to us. Omar Cooper Jr. fell to us. Trey Stukes, the outstanding nickel at 83, which may be good value for him because of the injuries and age. He could fall into that 3rd round. And then Brian Parker, the utility interior offensive lineman, to compete with Luke Fortner, make sure that he actually wins that job. It isn't just a, hey, we paid you a little bit of money and you're, an NFL center, so we're going to play you there. 158, 159, what positions do you want to look at?
Delp is like we talked about the tight ends already. Linebacker, safety is pretty much where I'm, and then defensive line.
This is where you got to get a linebacker at 158 or 159. You have to. You got to walk away with the linebacker at one of those 2 positions. You got to get somebody that, as you said, is going to contribute on special teams. Because the other part here is that we didn't draft a 100% gonna beat you out, gonna get the starting job safety to take Nick Scott out of that starting role. And I'm not saying that he has to be. I'm fine with Nick Scott as a starting role. But what it does is it means that Nick Scott also will not be a full-time special teams player if he's your starting free safety. And he is a good special teams player, but so that is a position that you kind of look at and say, so we probably need a special teams contributor there. They did re-sign Isaiah Simmons, who I think is kind of taking that role very seriously, and that's where he's contributing early on. So that's important to remember that. But linebacker is a place where we signed Claude Cherlis, right? We signed Claude. We still have Trevor Wallace. If anyone has been under a rock for the past 9 days or so, we also signed Devin Lloyd, the all-pro linebacker. And so you got that foundation right there, but I still think you need another player or two in that mix. That's where I would probably look, would be right around here for Caleb Elam's or Bryce Betcher or Red Murdoch would be the three that I would be very intrigued by there. Cornerback, you still got a guy like Devin Marshall, I think is very intriguing as far as a depth piece. Hezekiah Masses, I like a good deal. So what do you think?
Caleb
Proctor
like Caleb
as
Proctor.
the interior.
Zane Durant is a little bit shorter.
Yep.
I guess in the spirit of time, in the spirit of trying to think about what they would do, here's a proposal for you, Ricky.
Okay.
What if in the 5th round we go? So if you look at the board, we've gotten 3 people on offense and 1 on defense, right? So like in the spirit of time, I'm proposing that we go linebacker and safety in some form or fashion in this 5th round and close out 200 with the best tight end that's on the board.
Yeah, that's fun with me. I like that. All right, so let's start with linebacker then. Can we start with linebacker?
Yeah. So we like Red Murdoch.
We like Red Murdoch. Caleb Elam's and Bryce Betcher would be my other ones. Kendall Daniels is also really intriguing to me because he's a jumbo size. He was kind of like not like he wasn't like a safety necessarily. He wasn't a linebacker necessarily. I forget what position it was. Was it predator that they called it at Oklahoma? I can't remember exactly what the terminology that they used for it. But you can see he played a hybrid nickel and dime linebacker role in Brent Venable's scheme. But he's really intriguing to me if you can figure it out. He's a little bit older as well, but he's got some goods to him, man.
Okay. I would lean Murdoch. Just for his like his balls, like just being a guy that Dan Morgan said, like, we want people who turn the ball over, right? So that's, I mean, he hasn't played at he's not playing at the highest levels of competition, but I'd like to bank on that. And then obviously for special teams, safety. I know we looked at safety very briefly. I'm partial to Bishop Fitzgerald, but I know we can go with who you think is best, but that's a guy that I like as a free safety. As a not a threat, but like as competition for Nick Scott. Those are the two that I'm
maybe be competition for Damani Richardson, going for that final spot. That could be where he's competition. First, hold on. Hey Keaton, how are you, man? Appreciate you being in here. Chat, sorry we didn't really do as much with the interaction part here, but we've been trying to get through these picks and it's just been man, you talk about a hard day work trying to get through a mock draft in an hour and a half. Between Edgar and I, it's taking 2 hours for a mock draft. That is nutty. Stratton says Elam's is great in coverage. He is, and you know what, man? He's better against the run than he gets credit for. He could be used as a blitzer. He's got really good length. He's got the RAS that I think is intriguing for the Panthers as well. That's my only concern, Edgar, with Red Murdoch is how much do they look at his athleticism and feel like he's a little bit capped and say, how much will he contribute from a special team standpoint if he's not the dynamic athlete that some of these other guys are? And if he doesn't have the length that some of these other guys do they take a chance? Bryce Betcher is a 2-sport athlete, baseball player as well. 6'1", 233. So similar size to Red Murdoch, but maybe tiny bit more athleticism. I like Elam's a good bit. I think that he makes some sense. And you talk about like playmaking. 92 tackles, 3.5 tackles for a loss, a sack, 5 pass breakups, right?
Right.
In his final season, he had 130 tackles, 11 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks, and 2 pass deflections this past year for a sub 10% missed tackle rate as well.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go Elam Zor. So now we're at, I'm not trading with you, Cincinnati. Leave it alone. Well, so look, I took your linebacker pick there with Caleb Zelam-Orr. Why don't you take the safety that you like here with Bishop Fitzgerald?
I like Bishop Fitzgerald. Another person that's intriguing to me, but only purely from a RAS standpoint, is Lorenzo Styles, the brother of Sonny Styles. BJ Payne is a name that's
I love
risen.
BJ Payne. I love BJ Payne, and I wonder where he plays in the NFL. I know that he's suited as a box safety. I think he could also be a nickel safety. He plays too high at Kansas State. I don't know, man. He's super intriguing. He is a wicked athlete.
So why don't we? I mean, we don't have to take Bishop Fitzgerald. I don't.
Jalen Husky.
Jalen Hus. So he's a guy that I think the Panthers would love.
Me too. And honestly, his best season or his best production, in my opinion, best play was playing from depth, playing the deep third. I think that he's best at that.
Versatile. You know, he played a lot of boundary too.
Yeah.
Let's go Jalen Husky.
Let's go Jalen Husky. Let's do it.
We both in agreement.
And I think that you're right, though. I think that they'll like him as well. I think that they'll like what he brings and his versatility. Jacoby Thomas would be another one that I'd look at too. But Jalen Husky, let's go for it. All right. So now you want to take the best tight end available, right? Which is that makes sense too, because that is a strategy that a lot of teams will use these last guys as linebacker, defensive back, or tight end because of the special teams prowess for those positions as well. So tight end. Now is where we have our 15-minute argument about pick 200. Everybody, this is the moment you've been waiting for. This is what you watched an hour and 33 minutes of Edgar and I for, is the pick 200 conversation. All right, Edgar.
I mean, it's not fair because Delpa's still there.
Yeah, we won't take him here. We'll remove that.
Wow, here we go.
I know, I'm changing the rules at the end. Look at me.
I like, as a pure blocker or blocking guys, I like Kitzelman. I like Kaczmarek. If we want to go a little bit more well-rounded, does offer some blocking as well. Daquan Wright out of Ole Miss. He meets the size requirements that the Panthers are looking for in tight end. So those are the guys that I'm thinking about.
What do you think about Dallin Bentley? Does he intrigue you at all?
He meets the size thresholds of what the Panthers are looking for. I can't say I've watched much of him in terms of what he offers in terms of blocking, in terms of production, but he is clearly an athlete and clearly meets the size requirements for the Panthers.
I like Dallin Bentley a good bit. For me, it would be either Dallin Bentley, Kaczmarek, or Hibner, I think would be the other ones. Because Hibner, I think, also meets the size requirements. He's got long arms, good after the catch as well. Hibner is very
Hibner a lot. I think he's under talked and underhyped.
Agreed.
But it's a very good a very deep tight end class. So people are getting lost. But there's so many great athletes and so many great players.
Kaczmarek here, what's so intriguing to me with him, if you watch him and everything you'll hear about him is how good of a blocker he is. Like that's what you're going to hear about. And that is going to be his calling card. And it is extremely similar to me to like Jackson Hawes, the way that he's talked about. And if you'll remember when we had Matt Waldman on Draft Crush last season, and we asked, hey, who's the tight end for the Panthers that you think just makes sense, right? Because you and I both like Colston Loveland. We liked all these really flashy tight ends that we were talking about.
Yep.
And he said Jackson Hawes was a guy that made a lot of sense because of the blocking, but also offers some sneaky receiving upside that maybe just wasn't tapped into. Kaczmarek reminds me a lot of that. And I think that he's going to be better in the NFL than he was here. I don't think he's ever going to be your tight end one, some like a dynamic, great player that changes the trajectory of your offense. But I think that he can absolutely find a place on an NFL roster. But for the sake of Dan Morgan, what do you think, Dan? I think Dallin Bentley is going to be really intriguing to Dan. Kitzelman also. Kitzelman, the RAS score, I do think that Dan and Brant are analytically conscious.
Mhm.
And I think that that RAS score for tight end and the correlation between that and success, specifically when you're looking at this pick at 200, I think that that's going to make a difference. I really, really do. And I think you could cancel some players out. Kitzelman at 5.94 on the relative athletic score, I don't think they're
Mhm.
going to be interested at 200 the way that they would
Okay.
be looking at some of these other prime athletes. It's like, dude, just go for the big athlete, right? And see what
Mhm.
happens. So who do you like between Bentley, Daquan Wright, and Hibner? Do you feel like those are three fair?
They're fair. I haven't seen enough to to have a
Okay.
firm ad. I can't firmly advocate for anyone because I haven't really seen as much. This
Right.
is where I'm gonna have to lean on your expertise here. But
Um,
what I have seen, Daquan Wright, I love. uh Merrick as a pure blocking tight. I mean, like we've talked about this before in terms of philosophies.
mhm.
Like when you're this level, I'm just looking for something that you're really, really good at. I'm not looking for the well-rounded, like you could do this, you could do this, you can do this, because we're getting farther down the and so I'm looking for not necessarily a jack of all trades. Some of these might have obvious weaknesses, but like your strength better be like a top level. And for me, like we talked about Jackson Hawes, right? That blocking skill
Yeah,
set
yeah.
has value, even though maybe you don't have the production, maybe you don't have this, maybe you don't have that. Like, can you offer something at a close to top level, elite level skill? And so that's
Mhm.
where I would lean towards in terms of how far we are down the line in terms of the draft.
So if we're looking at this just from an all available
Mhm.
perspective too, for the sake of like when we go and do what would my pick be as opposed to what would Dan's pick be, I think
Mhm.
that tight end you can see the value, right? You got Kitzelman, Bentley, Daquan Wright. These are the top three available rated players on the PFF board.
Mhm.
Oscar Delp at 192, but we're gonna just I know we're changing the rules for pick 200, but it's the most important pick of the draft. We got to change the rules for the most important pick of the draft. Xavier Harris here is a gigantic defensive tackle. I think that that may be something that's in consideration just because of the size. Um,
I should mention too, Ricky, the people. I mean, if I put it up on the screen, like the people really love Katie, JLC. They really love Eli Heidenreich.
Yeah, they just signed AJ Dillon, so if Heidenreich is going to be a running back, he's going to have a tough mountain to climb. If he's a wide receiver, we just got Omar Cooper Jr., so where is he going to find his place there for that? Um, Stratton says I wouldn't go tight end here. It's the last round. A tight end 4 really isn't going to do much. I mean, but he will because he'll play special teams, right? And he will push if JT Sanders, if he's healthy and he comes back, Sanders going to have to beat somebody out for some playing time. I don't think that's just a shoe in. I think Tommy Tremble is your starter at tight end. Mitch Evans probably looked better than JT Sanders for much of last year. So Sanders could be tight end 3 right now with James Mitchell nipping at his heels and a rookie comes in and says, oh, hey, I'll play special teams better, right?
Yeah, for the record too, this is not the last round. This is still sixth round, and so there is still value to be had. Like we're not talking about the last pick of the seventh
Yeah,
round.
right,
We're talking about the end of the sixth round.
right.
I mean, again, I haven't watched much of Eli Heidenreich, but like if the one thing that bothers me, I guess bothers me is a strong word, but like
Yeah.
they haven't really addressed the returner position, and we all saw what Trevor Achan did in the playoffs, and like they've never addressed returners. So if it's Heidenreich or somebody else that offers return value, I can picture. I know this is going backwards on what I said, but in terms of getting a
Mm,
tight end here, but like this class is so deep, I can picture the Panthers aggressively wanting to give guarantees to a tight end in the UDFA group and selling for any of those guys because someone's going to be undrafted.
no doubt.
I would leave that. I would much prefer like if there's I mean, we just drafted Omar Cooper, but if there is a returner here, I know Caden
Yeah,
Wegen is out there,
that's
but
what I
like
was just about to say.
anybody that offers return value and potentially also can offer something in offense. This is what we thought we were going to get from Jimmy Horn, but if he's not going to be that person,
Mhm.
then we got to get somebody to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the Iowa returner is the guy that if you want to say, "Hey, look, we're looking for like a specialty type thing or a return player," this is the guy that's got that. I can tell you that much. I mean, he's been a dynamic returner since he got there, right? We still at pick 19. We are indeed. Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate you. Curtis is a newsman, so he's sitting there every now and then. He's jumping in here to see where we are. We're on first pick. We'll be done by about noon tomorrow, Curtis. Will they go with a 5'9", 193 player?
Probably,
but maybe, right? Kendrick Law.
One thing that's not as well known, and I haven't put it out there, but Kendrick Law actually played with Bryce Young at Alabama. Actually caught some passes, like made some plays without. So that's a cool little connection. Obviously, they got John Mechie recently. Different styles of play, but just another fun connection.
All right, well, we got to make a pick here, so you tell me what you want. You're Dan Morgan for this pick. It's not me.
In terms of pure athletes, Jeff Caldwell is also someone that really intrigues me because he was like essentially destroyed the combine and not just like had high scores. We're talking about historically high scores. And so I kind of like Jeff Caldwell. Like I kind of want, I mean, I know we got Omar Cooper, but if he can offer some return, like if he offers some special teams value, give me the pure, like out of this world, historically great combine performance guy.
Katie, I want you to take up your gripes with Edgar and Edgar only, okay? Jeff Caldwell, pick 200.
You could have drafted Eli.
No, not at all. You're Dan Morgan. You made the call.
Or Oscar Delp.
No, Oscar Delp is gone. We changed the rules at pick 200. That's what we do on this show. We change rules when it's convenient for us. That's what we do. We are not men of integrity. We are men of opportunity. Okay, so there's your class, ladies and gentlemen. You got Monroe Freeling with pick 19, Omar Cooper Jr. at pick 51, Trey Stukes at 83, Brian Parker, the interior offensive utility player, at 119, linebacker Caleb Elam's-Orr at 158, safety and defensive back extraordinaire Jalen Husky at 159, and Jeff Caldwell at pick 200. Because Katie wanted Jeff Caldwell at pick 2. No, I'm just kidding. Katie wanted Eli.
Wow.
Yeah, no, you've made enemy number 1, and Katie does not let shit go. She is going to be on you like white on rice, Edgar. You are in trouble for the rest of your days, my friend.
Wow.
Look at this. See, look, I'm putting a gigantic asterisk over Jeff Caldwell and stamping Eli in his spot. I like it. I dig it. Hey, shout out to PCX POT. Jeff Caldwell was his pick, and that was earlier. That was at 211, which was, almost a day ago. So he called Jeff Caldwell right there. I like it. Nice work.
This is our simulation. So let's just say we sign Eli as a UDFA, and we all come away happy.
You would love that, wouldn't you, Edgar? Hey, as much as I would love to sit here and do like a whole nother one and just spend another 2 hours doing mock drafts with you, I actually do have to go and pick up my son from school. So to the 600 people that showed up to do a mock draft with us on a Wednesday afternoon, appreciate you very much. Edgar, I appreciate you very much, man. Thanks for coming in and doing this. Thanks for serving as Dan Morgan. I will download this screenshot of our class. I will send it to you. Post it on Twitter. Let's start getting raked over the coals, or let's start getting, statues laid, lay some mortar down. Let's figure out, are we statue GMs, or do you want us fired? Am I the next Scott Fitterer, right? You tell me what it is. Edgar, anything else you want to say to the people before we sign off with our outro video?
Yeah, I just want to say for the record, we did our best to think what the Panthers would do. I think we got great value at every round with pure athletes and pure versatile, productive players that I think, like, if you walked away and you looked at our roster, that you add this class to what they've already done in free agency, like I'd be so excited.
Same. I think it's a good get. Hey, let's do this again, Edgar. What do you say? You want to talk and figure out another time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good. Everybody have a good rest of your Wednesday. NCAA tournament kicks off. Panthers on Tap will be back next week. Until then, keep pounding.